heard that. So, all right.
And this is it, Chev.
I don't know if we're live. I don't know if I see it, but we could or might not be live. Um, you know, this has been a bit of an adventure. Our poor producer, she got stuck on the airplane. She doesn't know if she's in town. She just texted us now. She said she let us down tremendously, which I don't feel like she let us down. I feel like our inability to figure out technology let us down, because I don't know if anyone is watching this show right now. We might need to hear from your wife or Rubio or someone out there. Big brother, are you listening to us? So Rubio says that I'm live, but I'm blurry. I'm still very blurry. So
Yeah, you're still blurry. Yeah.
I don't know what to do. What do I do?
Well, I think that's one of the things about going live. Like, this show is literally called The Ride. And it's called The Ride for a lot of different reasons. And one of them is Chevy Nasty's Ride. We try stuff. We try to figure things out. We've got this awesome, amazing production team on the NGBN.TV network. We should be live on Roku right now, but we're not going to be tonight. So anybody, if you guys within the network, if you can put it out there, we didn't make it onto Roku tonight, but we are going to be on YouTube Live and Facebook Live. And we're just going to figure this thing out, Chev. We're going to see how it goes. Yeah, we've got a handful of viewers on YouTube right now. I have no idea if we're live on Facebook or not. But
I don't think we're live on Facebook. I don't think we're live on Facebook.
Well, then tell a joke or tell a story. I'm going to see if I can.
Look who joined us, Kelly Kirch, right off the bat.
Hey, there we go.
Kelly, you're going to have to move maybe slightly to.
You're right. Left. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Hang on. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Kelly Kirch. So for those of you that don't know, especially our American friends that are joining us from the NGBN network tonight, this is Kelly Kirch, the man, the myth, the legend. When Randy and I tell the story about how we started off as just a couple of Joes on the Calgary Stampeders and got our first break in radio, this is Kelly Kirch, the man that gave us the break, the man that actually let us go live to, I don't know, how many people listened to the Fan 960 back in those days?
Oh, I think it would depend on the daytime and when it was, but I mean, it was probably in a given hour, probably 25,000-50,000 people, depending on how it goes. Tough to measure. Radio has had a problem with actually measuring what's going on, but when you talk about streams and you talk about kind of over the air, the station was pretty popular, and I worked in radio for 30 years. And I remember the people that loved the station and came up to me all the time. I could just been on some big stations and some not so big stations, but the fan and sports content in the city just really loved 960. And I know you guys still get asked about it how many years later, right? So a lot of folks listen to it, and it's interesting how sports media, the landscape has changed, but we certainly we had some fun back then and took some chances, and that was kind of the creative part of it. And you guys were part of it, obviously.
Well, wasn't that it? Because the Fan 960, as it was first called, really was. That was the first sports talk network in Calgary, and I think you're the program director really from day one.
Yeah, I took over in 2002, and it used to be called The Team, and it was basically just a satellite service for what was called the Chum Radio Network. And we flipped it to Fan 960 and built it piece by piece and bit by bit. Always had the Calgary Flames broadcast rights, but then added little pieces here and there. And whether it was Stampeder stuff, the one thing about the Stampeders that was interesting is, remember the Fred Fateri era?
Yeah,
and, you guys remember that, and that really kind of put the station on the map a little bit. That was before 2004, and the Flames had their only cup run in years. Really helped the station as well. But I mean, I remember Fred Fateri would just go on the air and just say crazy things sometimes, and it was just like, wow, this is interesting. So yeah, that was an interesting time, especially in Calgary, a city that was a young city and a big sports city. And the rights holders for the Calgary Stampeders didn't do much really. They just kind of did the games and had a little, some sports and that sort of thing. So we just kind of took the ball and ran with it, and it was one of those fun things. Now the Stampeders not nearly as popular as they used to be. There wasn't, for people who don't remember, that team would, if it a crowd below 30,000 was a shock, like what is happening?
Yeah.
And now it's rare that they'd even get to 30,000 due to a lot of reasons. But anyway, but it's fun to see you guys again, and I love what you're doing. I think it's very, very cool, and you're just broadcasters at heart that happen to play football.
Well, go ahead, Randy.
Go ahead, Sheldon. I was going to say that, and I mean, that's how it started way back when. We mentioned this a few times, that we started in our underwear in a hotel room. I believe we were in Edmonton, and I was doing play-by-play on the CBC broadcast during the talent strike, and I threw Sheldon a banana, and from there it went. Yeah. And I believe our first Chevy and Nasty actual episode was a Super Bowl party that you had invited us to.
Yeah. Yeah, we do that all the time. It was funny watching the Super Bowl, and I was saying to my wife, there's the one thing I do not miss is going to a sports bar for 8 hours on Super Bowl Sunday and giving away chicken wings and NFL jerseys and Flames tickets. And it's like, I kind of like watching it in my house now. So you did that. I remember, was it the first show you guys did where I maybe made a bit of a mistake by booking you at the Stampede Corral on the same day that they decided to have the, what is that, like the motocross
monster trucks,
or
dirt bikes or something.
Didn't know they practiced during the show. Didn't hear that part of it, but I was like, oh my god.
Well, that was actually Kelly. That was actually Rob Kerr's Football Fridays, and Nasty and I, we were guests on it. Yeah. And I'll never forget our first segment. We were going to face the Ottawa Red. It wasn't the Red Blacks. It was the Renegades. And Kerry Joseph was the quarterback, and Josh Ronick was the running back. And we were talking about that little dynamic duo in the first segment, and then we took our break. And I believe I said to Rob, Rob, Sheldon and I should get our show. And I told him what we did in our underwear a few weeks before, and we were laughing. But he's like, okay, Rob Kerr, okay. The mics are yours. I'm not going to say a word. I'm going to step back. I don't know if that was a challenge. I don't know if it was sarcasm. He's like, what are we going to call it? You need a name. And right then and there, we said Chevy and Nasty. And I think I had actually never called Sheldon Nasty. I still don't call him Nasty. A lot of people do. A lot of people call me Chevy. A lot of people don't. But at that moment, that's where Chevy and Nasty was born. And that was a guest spot on Rob's show. But then our first real show, I think, was that Super Bowl. And then the following year was when you put us on the air. Yeah. And that following year was, I believe was the first show. We were in the basement of the Saddle Dome, the Hot Stove Lounge. We were just outside the media room. We were going to go on the air. I believe it was around 4:00 we started. It was 3:50. And just as we're walking into the studio, I'm like, Rob, Sheldon, I got this great idea. And they're like, oh no, what's your idea, Chef?
Another idea from Chef.
What if we do, I was like, guys, bear with me. What if we do a poem that recaps last week's events in sports? And Rob's like, okay. And Sheldon's like, I don't know. And they're like, well, work on something and show us next week. And I pulled something out of my pocket. I'm like, guys, I happen to have one right here. And I thought maybe we could record it before we go on. And Rob's like, well, you're going to have to do it live. And I was like, Sheldon, you want to do this? And he was like, okay. So we did 300-pound poetry. So it just so happens, and we're glad that you joined us a little early because we are experiencing some technical difficulties and all that sort of stuff. But it just so happens that we've got a poem tonight in honor of the Super Bowl. So we're going to read that for you. You can critique us if you like after. I'm actually hoping that my video feed's a little bit better. I cut out and I cut back in. Someone told me
actually, it's just to let you know, it's saying that you're open on two browsers right now. And everybody on the chat line is saying, Chevy, there's a little button on there to click, get off of 320 and hit 1080 or 720 if you don't have
Okay,
1080.
let me try this
ability.
before we start our poem. I don't know
can
what I'm
hardly
doing.
wait for this poem. Like it's going to rhyme, all right? Like
Yeah,
that was always the
Hey,
key.
if we knew you'd be joining us early, Kelly, we would have had a line in here for you as well.
Yeah.
But,
Well, you know what? I don't see any 1080 or 320. I don't know.
right.
My internet's fine. My kids aren't here. You know what? We're just gonna rip with the poem. If you guys don't want to look at my face, it's probably blurry is better. Just close your eyes when I talk.
Well, I
Rubio.
don't know if you notice it, but Rubio just chimed in saying, "Wipe the poutine off the damn camera, Chevy."
Yeah, here, look here. There, I wiped the poutine off the camera, Rubio. There you go.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Just close
Joe.
your eyes. I got a face only a mother would love, and blurry. I'm probably look
I'm
better.
ready.
Okay,
I'm
so
gonna sit back and listen to this. Okay, here we go.
300-pound poetry, and then we're going to give you a better introduction after when we talk a little
Cool.
bit CFL. But here's the poem: 300-pound poetry. This is the ride you see. We're not polished nor pros. We're Chevy and Nasty again, just 300-pound Joes.
The game on Sunday promised to be the biggest of all, but the score was so little because the defenses stood so tall.
The Niners struck first, and there was positive fan reaction. We thought their early successes would get them some traction.
But key losses and misses, we felt a shift in the tide, and that early lead, well, it started to slide.
And it took him a while, but then Kelsey got some love. And all it took for him to get touches was an Andy Reid shove.
And then with the game twice on the line, Mahomes drove his Chiefs down. And on the final play of overtime, he regained his crown.
The Chiefs are the champs. It's now 2 in a row. An exciting finish to the season, despite a score oh so low.
Wait, hold on a second. Let's
But there's
hit
missed-
cheer.
No, you forgot your last line.
No, wrong button. Yeah,
You know
well, maybe that was a laughable attempt.
But you were looking for the applause before the final line.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do I have another one?
Yeah.
We keep going.
No, I think you've ruined it. Something about the season being done and no time to pout. There's lots to talk about, without a doubt.
We have no doubt.
You blew it, Sheldon.
Oh, I did. See how hard this is, Kelly?
the thing is when you do it for real, it's going to sound great. That was a great rehearsal, and when you guys will just nail it, and that's the way it goes. No Taylor Swift mention in 300-pound poetry.
Yeah, you know what?
Surprise?
We've
Swift?
mentioned her before. And we're gonna talk about Taylor later. We're gonna talk about Taylor later. So the way we've got this planned out tonight, we're gonna talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. Did you get a chance to watch it, Kelly?
Yeah.
Were you tuned in?
I
So
was
we're gonna
there.
talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. Then we're gonna shift gears to the CFL. Today was the start of CFL free agency. So with the end of one season, we start to get excited about the new season. And I know you're so excited because your riders made a lot of moves that you want to talk about. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that because we all invested in some of the green. And then we're gonna talk about the goat or the boat. And Sheldon will tee that up later. And then finally, in our third segment, which you're more than welcome to stay for us for the hour and a half. I don't know how long we're going to be here, because my face is so distorted. But we're going to talk a little bit about trash. There's going to be a little bit of trash talk. That's where we're going to dump in the Taylor Swift, the Brittany Mahomes. We got to revisit a story we talked about a few weeks ago about Michael Jordan's son and Scottie Pippen's ex-wife, who were in a relationship up until this weekend. So all that and more. But let's start with the game. We mentioned in the poem, it was a low-scoring affair. In fact, no one did anything for basically. Well, the Niners scored a touchdown and got a field goal, but it was a really low-scoring game. Early impressions of the game after the first quarter. What were you guys thinking watching what was going on?
Well, first of all, too, with Kelly just joining us for the first time in a while, going into the game, were you in the camp of, listen, you can't bet against Mahomes? Or were you in the camp of, there's some exciting stuff going on in San Fran and this Purdy kid with McCaffrey and Shanahan? What camp were you in going into this weekend?
What I was with Mahomes, because I thought, guys, like if you have the best quarterback around and best one we've seen in a long time, and the lights are at the brightest, and you need him to do something magical. I just said between those two guys, I'm going to take Mahomes just because I've seen it before, and it doesn't faze him. And you sure saw that in overtime and in the fourth quarter. But I thought the Niners story was really interesting. It wasn't either one of the teams I wanted. I thought it was going to be Baltimore and Detroit, but that didn't happen. But I don't know. I just think, and you guys have seen a lot of quarterbacks, good and bad. You can just see guy just take the team on his, whether it was like 4th and 1, he's like, they're not going to hand it off. He is going to just run like the wind, and he did. Just a couple of those throws he made were fantastic. So yeah, I was totally in the Mahomes camp. I didn't think it was going to overtime, and I was surprised at the mistakes at the beginning of the game from both teams. It's like, wow, this is really sloppy for, a final game, and the special teams was kind of cool for the Niners. They were doing all kinds of good stuff, and then missed an extra point, and it's like, oh, it sort of kind of bit him in the ass at the end of it. So
no doubt. And let's talk about some of those mistakes, even coming right out of the gates. Now, you always wondered, Mahomes is going to be ready to go. Brock Purdy, we had actually Jeff Garcia on last week talking about it, and he felt pretty strongly that Purdy was going to be able to would be able to rise to the occasion. And sure enough, if you look at that opening drive, I think the over-under on yards on the first play was 7 or under, and McCaffrey got 6. And so Purdy did a real nice job of handing the ball off to McCaffrey early. He tossed it to him. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry about that. But they were driving. I was actually, they spent 2 weeks preparing that opening drive, and they executed. They drove the ball down. They were in field goal range within 4 or 5 plays. And then of all things, McCaffrey, the fumble. Yeah. McCaffrey, he's fumbled twice this year. Maybe a bit more than that. I tend to make up stats still, Kelly, but I'm pretty sure it was twice.
Yeah, well, stats.
And names.
And names as well. But didn't Brock Purdy go to the same school you did?
Yeah, we were teammates.
Yeah, I thought
about 20 years removed, but we were teammates. Yeah,
I thought that.
Yeah,
well, if Sheldon asked you what team you were betting for the game, Sheldon was heavily in favor of the 49ers and his Iowa State buddy. So he'd been pulling from all year. In fact, today I posted a clip where, I predicted the Chiefs Super Bowl win way back in October. So I'm going to take credit for that. So last week, I was asked head or heart. Head is you can't bet against Mahomes. Same as you, Kelly. He's done it too many times to bet against him. Even, and I said, that used to be the baton carried by Tom Brady for me. But he's no longer there. It is Mahomes. He's done it enough times against bigger teams that I knew he could pull through on Sunday. In fact, when the 49ers pulled ahead at the end of that game, there was just about 2 minutes left. And I had 4 boys in my house plus a buddy here, and they were all cheering for the Niners. And my heart wanted the Niners to do well. I love the Brock Purdy story. I mean, that's the story of every guy that's in the CFL that may get a shot to the NFL. That's the story of every quarterback, Jeff Garcia, Doug Flutie, anyone that's ever gotten a shot. That's what he represents, in my opinion, including, my own football dreams coming out of college. So my heart was with him. But when there was 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter and my boys were celebrating and they were nervous, there was kids jumping up and down, pounding on the couch. And I was like, guys, this is where Mahomes makes his money. Yeah. This is why he is one of the highest paid guys out there, because of these 2 minutes. He's either going to tie it or he's going to win it. And I said that missed extra point is going to bite them in the ass in these 2 minutes. And they did. Yeah. And then they tie it up. They go to that overtime, questionable tactics.
Before we jump right to the end of the game, though, I was having a thought. You know how Detroit never punts. Go for it on fourth down all the time. Yeah. Right? All the time. And as I watched the extra point get blocked, and there was a 3-point lead. Now, in my mind, I'm the same as you. I know with 2 minutes left, there's no stopping Mahomes, right? They're going to find a way. They always do, no doubt. But, I was almost thankful for it, because you know what I think would have happened if they had the 4-point lead? Do you think anybody in that stadium doubted that if he knew he needed 6, he would have gotten 6? right?
Yeah,
You don't think that that Andy Reid and the play caller, they had all the scenarios worked out, and even if all options were taken away, if it's Mahomes, because remember, he was in field goal range within 20 some seconds.
Yeah.
He was really just dabbling for a minute to testing things out, but playing it safe. They never took a chance because they didn't have to, right?
Well,
So
yeah, I was gonna say, like, guys, and you know this better than I do, but it was interesting that the Kansas City offensive line was junk for most of that game. So my question to you guys: did they get better, or did San Francisco just get worn out, or did they just miss a bunch of holding calls? Because when they needed that offensive line, and they had like two guys missing, when they needed them to be at their best and give them some time, they got it. So I was just kind of wondering, like, are they worn out, or did they just suck it up and find another gear like Tom Brady used to get with his guys in New England? I thought that was an interesting part of the game, because it's like, now he's getting some time. Now he's gonna dice these guys up.
And I wonder if a part of that, Kelly, was earlier in the game. I think towards the end of the first half. Do you remember on the sideline when you're watching Dre Greenlaw, outside linebacker for the Niners, bouncing up and down, about to run on the field? Oh, whistle hasn't been blown yet. Catches himself, stutter steps, goes on the field, blows his Achilles.
Yeah,
right.
Which is
so he was their best. He was their best cover linebacker. And I have a sense that going into the third quarter, you started seeing Kansas City keep running their offense and getting that momentum. But you better believe that they had packages that got the ball out of their hand quickly. Because Kelsey had what, one? No, Kelsey had, Chevy, check the notes on that. Did Kelsey? I know at one point he had more tackles than touches.
So at the start of the third quarter and past the Chiefs' first drive, Kelsey, because the Chiefs' first drive in the third quarter ended with an interception, Kelsey got the tackle on that play, and he had more interceptions than catches at that point. So there was obviously some frustration. There's obviously something going on where, sometimes in a game, the first 10, 12 plays are scripted. Well, usually they are. And I think those teams went through their scripts and they still weren't able to find the holes. They still weren't able to find the strengths. They weren't able to tell which guy was on fire, which guy wasn't. And I think that carried over into the third quarter. That's why it was such a low-scoring game, added to the fact that, like Sheldon said, Dre Greenlaw gets injured, added to the fact that, they didn't even look Kelsey's way in the first half. I think that all contributed. And then it started to change. I think the combination of Patrick Mahomes going repeatedly to Pacheco, whether it was on the ground or even the little dump passes, it was forcing those linebackers to make some adjustments because they didn't know who was getting the ball. And then, like you mentioned before, on that fourth and one, where San Fran goes man coverage, they man everyone up. They run sort of this zone play to the outside where it looks like running back's going to get the ball. The linebacker crashes down to the linebacker or to the running back. The DBs grab Kelsey. Mahomes has a huge hole, right? So they started playing to the strength of their athletes, and they got out of that feeling out process. I think that, we talked about the shove. I think that was the most fire that we saw out of anyone on the field was Travis Kelce after that fumble by the Chiefs in the scoring zone on the first half. And he grabs Andy Reid and he's like, do you guys, first of all, do you think that was a give me the damn ball moment?
No,
or
that was keep me in. Don't take me out.
That was it. Don't take me out.
That's what it sounded like to me, or looked like to me. Yeah.
I think he was absolutely raging because I've been in those situations before where you're in the heat of the game and you get pulled out and you just think it's the most insane thing ever. You don't, in the moment of that passion, you're not even computing that there's a plan at B. You just can't figure out why you're pulled out of there. But that was one of the more violent interactions I've ever seen with a player. When like Kelsey comes up to him and some people played it off as, oh, he just surprised him. No, he jolted him. And even Andy Reid's talking about, well, he tested out my new hip. I mean, that was a pretty drastic event to have happened, but the way that Andy Reid handled it, he didn't get up to that.
Yeah. You know what it kind of reminded me of, guys, and this is going back a ways. remember the Buffalo Bills found new ways to kind of implode in some of those Super Bowls. And when stuff started going wrong, it was always that stuff on the sidelines. And I was saying to my buddy, I go, that's what it kind of reminds me of right now is Kansas City kind of, are they getting lost in the moment? But, you know, it turns out they didn't, obviously, and got after it. But that's what it reminded me of. I was like, ooh. Gee,
I think you've just got so many pros there. They've been there and have done that. And that's the same thing. Even playing with greats, you can see, you know, I honestly, I can't think of a lot of examples other than seeing guys in the CFL get heated up, which is a lot less discipline than I think the NFL is. But their ability to recover and stay focused. I'm going to read back here on just a couple of notes here, Chev, because I know you can't see it, but Jamin on YouTube just wanted to remind you that you're looking good. And Rob Evans just gave this little tribute to McRib sauce. I'm not sure what that's about. I think that was last week's topic, was the McRib. We'll ask Kelly about that a little later in the show.
Yeah.
And Anthony Cobbs reminding us, they didn't go to overtime. They went to double overtime in the Super Bowl. Where if this was 3 years ago,
was that double over? No, that was overtime. That was one overtime period.
No, because it
went to the second quarter. Well, not double overtime, but it went second quarter. I wouldn't
call it double overtime. What
no, second possession.
But if this was overtime 3 years ago, the 49ers were Super Bowl champs because they scored first.
Yeah.
I think, Sheldon, what AC wants is for us to go to double overtime. I think that's what he's referring to. Let's just take a little station identification here. We're the ride with Chevy and Nasty. I'm Chevy. The guy in the middle is Nasty. He sounds a lot better than I do. And we're joined by the Regina Rocket, Kelly Kirch, former program director for the Fan 960. He's living the, I guess they would call the private civilian life, but still dabbles. And we hope that tonight is the start of regular visits by the Regina Rocket to give us a little bit of a CFL report. Before we get to the CFL, just to wrap up this game, because there were a lot of storylines. We talk about the Dre Greenlaw. We talk about Kelsey, shoving Andy Reid and then going on fire. For a guy that didn't get a catch until after the first possession in the third quarter, he ends up with 9 catches for 93 yards and some huge plays at the end. I mean, when he got the ball in his hands, he was motoring. No one was tackling him. They were getting hit by him. He was a factor. Obviously, Mahomes was a factor. Obviously, the missed kicks, the fumbles. What do you guys think was the main deciding point that kept that game within striking distance for possibly one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? What do you think was that moment where it was like, oh, shit?
I don't know if it was a moment for me. I just think that San Francisco had a chance to really knock Kansas City out in the first half, and they just couldn't do it. I go, this game is still 10, was it 7-3 or 10-3? I go, what is like nail, like you got these guys on the ropes, like stomp on them, and they couldn't do it. And I thought, boy, you were letting these guys hang around after they had a horrible first half. That I don't think that was kind of what you're looking for, Chev. But for me, that was like, wow, they're still in this thing. They've played about as bad as they've played all year in the biggest game of the year, and they're like, one away, and then they weren't great in the start of the third quarter, and then suddenly they kind of light went on, and I think San Francisco got a little too much for them. That was for me anyway. It was earlier than maybe people thought the turning point would have been.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Kelly. I mean, they came out and like I said, that first drive, they looked like world beaters and they were prepared, but they couldn't execute. They made a mistake. The next drive was plagued, if I remember, by penalties. They're all pro offensive linemen. It had 15 yards in penalties on one drive. But I think losing Greenlaw in the first half did make a difference because Kansas City, I think was able to start taking advantage of some matchups. But then even remember, Deebo Samuels was dinged up. He pulled his hamstring or something happened on that play. Yeah. He was never the same. So you lose one playmaker against the Chiefs, and it's going to show. When I talk about did Brock Purdy answer the criticism, the questions of the game manager? Yeah, absolutely. He's a great elite quarterback for this stage in the game. But the difference between him and a guy like Patrick Mahomes is if you take away all of Brock Purdy's options, he's kind of down to one trick. He can roll out, maybe use his legs to escape, and then he'll have time to think of what to do next. And he usually does something awesome. Patrick Mahomes, you can take away all of his options and he just makes stuff up on the fly. He is so in the moment. He reminds me of a guy like Doug Flutie. His mind never stopped working and it never stopped being in the moment. And so you just, like Kelly said, if you don't put that nail in the coffin when you have the chance, it's going to come back to bite you. Mm-hmm. For me, though, what my turning point of the game was, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this. So we're going into overtime, a brand new overtime format in the NFL. Finally, the Niners get the tails, is their pick. And what do they choose? We'll take the ball. When they chose to take the ball, they were literally giving the Chiefs the exact playbook that they needed to know going into their next series, and they gave them an extra down. Suddenly, fourth down is irrelevant, right?
Yep.
Fourth down is whatever you need it to be. And to me, that was really the turning point. I think that was a mistake. Say what you want about the defense being tired. You got a 3-minute break there for the commercial break. I don't know. I thought that was the most mysterious call of the entire night.
Maybe because they thought their defense was tired and gave them a little bit of a break, but I don't know. I think you want to know what you need, right? I always think it's better to know what you have than, I don't know. Yeah.
Go ahead, Chev.
I was going to say, I think that's always been historical, the way coaches call it in the CFL. Let the other team take the ball. Let them work, put your defense to work, let them get off the field, and then try to exactly you said, know what you need, right? Your playbook changes depending on what's going on. You're not scrambling. Whereas if you're the 49ers, you think, well, we have to score. That your mentality is there's a little bit more pressure on you, I think, when you go first with the ball. So yeah, I thought that was curious. But if I'm going to go back to what my original question was, what I thought the turning point was in the game, I'm going to say it was that blocked extra point. It had to have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That
was the one point that kept the Chiefs within striking distance during regulation time. That, guys record-setting kicks, plus 50-yard kicks in the game, breaking Super Bowl records, and we're driving the ball on extra point. It doesn't make sense. You see the way those guys kick off. They're hitting the top of Allegiant Stadium on the kickoffs. There's no reason that the guy should be driving the kick into the line. Now, our buddy Rubio's online. His long snapper was the long snapper for the 49ers. That's who he was cheering for. I know it was a good snap. I know it was a good hold. And in that case, you're placing it on the kicker. And then again, if you go further down what's my wheelhouse, look at that fumble. Possibly, and I'm going to tell you this, possibly the loss of Drake Greenlaw also affected the 49ers special teams. Because when you got to promote a linebacker to a starting spot, that means someone is coming off somewhere or someone's giving him a blow on special teams somewhere else. And there might have been a breakdown in communication there, because when you have a short kick and it's in traffic, the returner is yelling poison, 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 which means break off whatever you're doing, run to the sideline, run to your mom's house, just get the hell out of the way so the ball does not hit you. All right. And in a very brief moment, that returner had to make a decision that obviously didn't go in his favor. So I really think the special teams failed the 49ers in regulation. And then the coaching strategy for sure in the overtime. We got some comments here. Again, thank you for all of you guys watching tonight. It's been a bit of an adventure for us. I hope my face cleared up. And if it didn't, I don't care. I'll use that Clearasil BP Plus for next week and I'll clear it. But let's see. So a couple of people. Bruno thinks that the turning point was Mahomes deciding to scramble. Definitely could agree with that. And I think that kind of lends to what you're saying is when he decides that it's time to make the money, he makes the money. Someone in one of the comments, someone said, there's a lot of chatter online that it's scripted, that this is going according to the NFL script. I don't know if it's going according to any script, but when the team is good, a team is good.
Yeah.
And we saw it with the Patriots over the last decade and a half. They were good. And they won games, and it wasn't a script. And we're seeing it again. And I'm not a Kansas City Chiefs lover. I respect their team. I love them basically for the same reasons I enjoyed the Patriots in the Belichick Brady days, because they were efficient, they were good, and you always knew they were in the game.
And you always felt good about yourself when you cheered for him because you always won.
Or if you bet for them.
Or if you bet 'em, yeah.
But there are people that are saying this is part of the script. I really think that, as the season went on, and I was kind of doubting my pick because in October, when I said Taylor Swift or no Taylor Swift, the Chiefs are my favorite to win the Super Bowl. I said it. The week later, they got spanked by the Broncos. Okay. And the Broncos were terrible at that time of the season. And I was really regretting my pick then. But what they did is what good teams do. They find a way to play to their strengths. They adjust what they do and how they do it to adjust to what other people are doing. And we didn't see any better illustration of that from the Chiefs than in the playoffs. When they went to Buffalo, and Buffalo was riding high, and they took down the Bills. And then they went to Baltimore with the MVP of the league, and they took down the Ravens. And I thought, gosh, they're peaking at the right time. And again, all credit to Brock Purdy. I love Brock Purdy. I love his story. He proved so many people so wrong in their analysis of him. And even though those same people will still not give him a break, because I'm still hearing the hate for him, that he's not a good quarterback. He doesn't deserve to be a starter. He's exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo did for the 49ers. From where this guy came to where he brought his team, I mean, at this point, he doesn't care that he was Mr. Irrelevant. Everyone else does.
Listen, and I'll go back a little bit.
Let me just finish. At this point, he just is upset that he couldn't win that Super Bowl. It has nothing to do with where he came from. He is here. That's not his story anymore. His story is I'm the starting quarterback for the 49ers. When he's done, when he's long said and done and retired, he'll look back and say, oh man, I did pretty good from where I came from. But right now, there's nobody more pissed than Brock Purdy, who didn't deliver a Super Bowl for his team, despite all the overcoming he did to get to that point.
Well, he's probably going to go back there next year because I think Niners look pretty good, set up pretty good for next year. So
not only that, he's being paid $900,000 a year. So that's you can do a lot with your other stars on the team when you're starting who's about to become a franchise quarterback somewhere, probably in San Fran. But they're saving themselves about $13 million a year for that kind of performance and that number of wins, right? So
yeah, good stuff.
So that's a little cap on a Super Bowl.
I want to take this somewhere. I want to take this somewhere else for a second. I'm not going to pretend this was my idea. I might pretend it, but somebody's going to call me on it. I was listening to sports radio the other day, and the two guys were talking about the goat versus the boat, right? And they started calling Mahomes the boat, the best of all time. So what is there in your mind? Is there a difference between the greatest of all time and the best of all time? Like, when you think about that, like, so if we're talking about, let's talk about Wayne Gretzky for a second. Is Wayne Gretzky the greatest of all time, or is he not? I think clearly you have to say he is because he's won more Stanley Cups, he's put up more points, he's had more goals, more assists than anybody to ever lace up.
That's
skates.
always the classic sports radio debate and the sports debate. You talk about guys from different eras, and so even Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. That's kind of where you're going with it. It's like, well,
it's let me take it a step further, Kirch, and then I'm going to let you run on this one for a little bit here.
Okay.
So let's say, and this is the analogy that I'm stealing from these guys, but let's say that you looked up into the night sky tonight, somewhere over Regina. I know you don't live in Regina, but I'm going to pretend that you do. You might as well. And you see the aliens coming down, and there's all these attack ships, and they're like, we are here to take your everything, but we will agree to one football game, us against you guys. And if you guys beat us, then we're just going to take off and go home. Who's your starting quarterback?
Like today? Like I can't go back in time.
You can go back in time.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, first of all, I'm glad the aliens aren't asking me about how to explain how electricity works or how cars run, because
or why Chevy's camera's always so fuzzy,
and why is Chevy's camera like those are the answers I do not have for you. But if you wanted to say we need a quarterback, I just go by body of work, and I would take Tom Brady every time. Now 2-3 years from now and a few more championships for Mr. Mahomes, maybe I change my tune a little bit, but Tom Brady and it's I love having these young guys at work. They talk about comparing basketball players, right? A lot of NBA guys, and a lot of them are too young to watch Michael Jordan in his prime, and so they want to talk about Michael Jordan compared to Kobe or LeBron. And I go, oh, guys, you had to have watched Michael Jordan because he reinvented the sport and he was incredible at it. So yeah, it's a fun debate, and it's almost impossible to kind of figure it out, because especially when you get like really old. Let's talk about Terry Bradshaw compared to, well, it's a different league back then.
But I'm Kelly, I'm talking the aliens are right there in their attack ships.
They're right there in the
There's
attack
nothing
ships.
but pressure. Are you going to take a chance on Bradshaw? Like, I didn't watch Bradshaw. I didn't see him play.
No, I wouldn't. I would never take before, since, or during. No, I would take that Steelers team though from the 70s, because they were insane. But I would take Tom Brady over Patrick Mahomes right now. In Brady, not in his Tampa Bay. I'm almost retired. I can't, seem to make.
Well, he still won a Super Bowl there. We got a few people chiming in. Joe Montana is the name that comes up.
Yeah,
and it's
for sure.
It's funny because Tom Brady was being considered. I think that comparison, Tom Brady to Joe Montana, was the most recent new guy versus old guy comparison in our modern times. Mm-hmm. And it took until Tom Brady started pulling away to really put that GOAT. I think there's no doubt now in any football player's mind. Again, I know a lot of people hated Tom Brady. People accused him of the cheating, the tuck rule, the deflate gate. But whatever it is, he went out.
Pumping that ball did not make them a better team. So I'm sorry.
But it took until he started pulling away in his 30s and winning more Super Bowls for people to really put that argument to rest and really kind of crown him.
Chevy, let me prove this point for you. And I wish so. Tonight we don't have the production value. We don't have.
But let me just finish.
Okay,
get your point.
Go ahead.
So it took until him winning all those Super Bowls for it finally to rest, for people finally to say, well, this 7th round draft pick that unseated Drew Bledsoe, that was a Mr. Nothing in the we look at him run, his testing results were terrible. It took until he won those Super Bowls, and even for some people, it took him going to Tampa, going on a brand new team and taking them to a Super Bowl before they crowned him the GOAT. What is it going to take for Mahomes to do the same, to put that argument to rest, so that people will take him to defend the earth against the aliens?
Rocket.
Two more championships, I think, and maybe do it without, maybe an Andy Reid or without a Travis Kelce or something like that, where he's going to have to prove that, I can do it no matter what. And even if they retool a few things, I think that's what it's going to take. But man, he is something to watch. And a lot of people didn't. You kind of knew that he had something up his sleeve there in overtime. But yeah. I think a couple more. And then we start putting him in the same sort of bracket.
No doubt. I would put him as the best of all time, just because I haven't seen a guy have all the physical tools that he has. But so the comparison going on, I'm sorry we can't put this up there right now. Before turning 30, Patrick Mahomes, 18 playoff games, Brady, 14 games. I don't care about the passing yards, but Mahomes, 41 passing touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Brady, 20 passing touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Both of them had 3 Super Bowl championships, but Mahomes was MVP in all 3. So right off the gates, now in the same, it's about at the same 6-year period, Mahomes is leading the charge. But then you take a look at, there was some dark years, New England, where they're good, but they weren't winning championships. It was Brady in his mid to late 30s and 40s. He won 4 Super Bowls, 2015, 2017, 2019. Then he changed teams. Remember the debate? Is it Belichick or is it Brady? Well, that got answered real fast. Maybe the answer was it's Shockey. I don't know. But in 2021, I mean, he went on and put together a dynasty of championships in his later years in football. So Mahomes has got a big wall to climb to get recognized as that. But in my mind, there's no doubt he's not in the conversations being a top 2 most talented. It almost doesn't matter at this point, does it? The rest of it's just going to be hardware and longevity.
Yeah. And see if he doesn't get hurt, and he can just keep playing, and they can keep, good staff around him and good good people, which they seem to keep doing, I think he'll be, he's going to the Hall of Fame, and it'll be pretty cool. And it's neat to get to watch these guys, right? Like, I just think it's just amazing that you get to see these guys in their prime, and TV's everywhere, and the NFL is so big. It's a real treat, because there's been some real bad quarterbacks go through the NFL, and in some games were like, geez, this is tough to watch. But to see a master craftsman like that, incredible story.
There's been a lot of tight ends with Taylor Swift's too, right?
We got a quote here from Rubio. He says, if Mahomes doesn't sound like a dirty Kermit the Frog and have his wife, who many people do not like, he'd be higher up on everyone's list. I think so. And just to make a final point on this, Brady and Mahomes, two completely different style of quarterbacks. Brady is sort of the last holdback of that stand, drop back in the pocket. Mahomes is the new generation, but he's a running, scrambling quarterback, but he does it very smart. You don't see him take too many hits. He takes his biggest hits when he stands in the pocket. Usually when he's running, he's very smart with how he runs. He won't take a hit full speed when he's running. And I think he's going to have that longevity, and that arm of his is ridiculous. It's The Ride, Chevy and Nasty. We're on the NGBN.TV network. Tonight, I don't know where we are. We're sort of on the internet. My face is all scrambly. I still see it here. I'm reading the comments. The NGBN.TV network, for those of you listening, is a network for men in their 40s, 50s, 60s. We say 70s, 80s, 90s. I don't care. If you're a dude out there, this is a network for you, but this is a show for you. We were almost going to pull the plug on this tonight. We didn't even have a program. We did. Sheldon
Chevy got poutine smeared all over his camera.
Yeah, but I'm going to give some props here, because unfortunately our poor Jenna was stuck in the airport. Jenna, our great producer, our great everything for the back end of the show, she got stuck at the airport. Things weren't working. Sheldon figured out pretty quickly how to get our program that we usually record our podcasts on to get a live stream going. And we thought it was important because we knew that people were going to show up. And that's what this network is about. It's about showing up for the people that, want to unwind, might have had a crappy day, might have had a great day, but just want a little bit of entertainment, just want a little bit of release, just want to forget. And even though I look super gross on TV right now, I don't care, because we're having fun. We've got Kelly Kirch, the Regina Rocket, joining us. He's also the co-host of the Rider Nation podcast, in case you're a Riders fan. And if you are a Riders fan, I see a lot of a talk out here. It's pretty cool, because we got some American listeners. We got some Canadian listeners. So when the football names are getting thrown out, you got all these sort of guys that are like, I see Roger Aldag's name throw up over there. And then I saw Joe Theismann. So we have people, we have community. You're talking. That makes us happy. We're talking and we're having fun. So we brought Kelly on because we wanted to talk a little bit of CFL. We're putting the NFL to bed. We're going to go back a little bit later, talk about the halftime show and all that, because we are hitting overtime. It's already 11:47. Sheldon's looking at the clock.
I'm looking at my Riders helmet over my shoulder, buddy. I want to hear Kirsch's take on what just happened the last couple of months, because this is a brand new Riders program, baby.
Right. So let's talk some CFL, because today, February 13th, was the start of free agency. And it's the start of the exciting new 2024 CFL season for all of us, especially our American guys down there that don't have too much exposure to the CFL. This is your first day talking about it in 2024. Kelly, tell us a little bit about your Riders in a nutshell.
Well, in a nutshell, first of all, can we just say it's kind of weird how the CFL does their free agency when you actually know who gets signed like 3 weeks before it actually happens. That is kind of strange. And then it's kind of like when you get the, today, the deadline comes, and then all this news is like, okay, yeah, I knew that was coming. Yeah, I knew that was coming. It's like, well, maybe I should just, follow Justin Dunk and Farhan Lalji and Dave Naylor, and I would have had all this. Having said all that, I mean, I would do it a little bit differently. I would make this a way bigger day. I would wait for the Super Bowl stuff to die down, and I would make a big fun day out of it on a Friday or Saturday. But if you're asking me how I thought the Riders did, I thought they did pretty well. But money talks in this situation. I think the addition of the offensive line has been really a trouble spot. And a guy that started his career way back when, I don't know if you guys even played with him, Jamarcus Hardrick. He's back, and they paid him a bunch of money to come back. He's a little young, a little old in the tooth, but I think he's really going to help.
Still performing at a high
big,
level.
Strong guy, and they've had problems at right tackles. I can't remember when they had a good right tackle. Maybe Ben
Gino
Heenan.
Mikowski.
Well, you know what I mean? Like it's been a while. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought maybe one of the more subtle ones was defensive back, who I thought really played well with the BC Lions, Edwards Cooper.
Yeah.
I think he is, really can play. And I think that the CFL, maybe those guys don't get enough credit, but they throw so much and the field so wide. You really need guys that can really ball out, as you guys know. And I think some of the other ones were interesting. The thing they didn't do was they're still going to have, they better hope that Trevor Harris is going to be healthy, because they still have Mason Fine and then Antonio Pimpkin as their quarterbacks. I go, is there another play there somewhere? And some of the guys they lost, I don't think anyone's going to miss, Nick Marshall and some of the nonsense that he went through, and Derek Moncrief just hasn't been as good as he was. And Pete Robertson's he's gone to BC. I think that one's going to sting him a little bit. He had some injuries last year. Jake Winicky was junk and too much money and hurt all the time. And I think Micah Tykes maybe didn't have the best season after he came back from injury. And is it a fit? I think he's in Calgary. I think if that's not true, that it will be. I think that's,
you heard it here first, folks, or third or fourth.
Yeah. But I think, and some of the other guys that they have, their offensive line, Philip Blake, who's like your age guys, but he's still playing. So, and he was hurt a lot. So that'll be interesting. Micah Johnson, also your age as well. He's still playing. Why aren't you guys still playing?
Few years. Micah Johnson is a few years younger than us.
Micah.
He was, sure. Did you played with him, but
but nobody wanted to pay me the money that they're paying these guys. I mean, that's just what
Micah Johnson's good. He was good.
Well, thanks, Sheldon.
Well, he couldn't snap a ball.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you my free agent story.
Snapping.
Listen to this free agent story. So what you mentioned, there's a couple of things you mentioned, and I think it's interesting. We'll get back to the actual signings, because the Riders were the most active today. They were busy. But back to free agency 2010, and you talked about this weird thing that the CFL does where where everyone's going before they're going. That wasn't the case before.
No.
When I was playing, that was never the case. I was a free agent about 3 or 4 times throughout my tenure, probably 3 times throughout my tenure with the Stamps over 11 years. And I never knew if anyone was interested in me beyond. I wasn't planning on leaving, but I tell you what, in 2010, when you're a free agent and you're kind of, you're a long snapper, or you're anybody on the roster that's not necessarily a starting player or a star player where they're going to give big money to, they're always trying to make a cut there so they can make more money to pay the guys that they sign on day one of free agency. So Stampeders come to me, Huffnagel comes to me, and he's like, yeah, we're going to give you a pay cut, blah, blah, blah. The typical song and dance, cap and blah, blah, blah. And, you're getting older. I don't know how old I was at the time. I was probably 35. I remember him even asking me, he said, how long are you going to even play, Chev? And I said, I'm going to play till I'm 40, maybe 50. And he laughed at me, right? But I did wind up playing till I was 40. But he gets me a pay cut. I agree to it, begrudgingly. It's hard to go home and say, hey, this year, we're going to make about $12,000 less. So somehow I'm going to have to make that up. Oh, and we have more kids than we did last year. But I signed it because obviously the hometown discount, played for the Stamps. You think, hey, I'm a loyal guy, play for the team. The first guy the Stampeders signed on hour 1 of free agency was the long snapper for the Edmonton Eskimos at the time, Tim St. Pierre. And Tim and I became great friends. He's a Calgary police officer. I'm a Calgary firefighter. We were roommates forever. Great dude, great guy, great teammate. But man, let me tell you how deflating that is when you take that hometown discount, or you give that hometown discount, you sign. And I mean, we're not talking about receivers where they carry 10 receivers. We're talking about the long snapper. They carry 1 on the roster.
Kind of feel like Connor McDavid. Hey,
why are you bringing competition
and nobody else did?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, competition is welcome, but typically when you have that position locked down, so I remember I felt so Man, I was so upset at that time. So that was my free agent experience. It really sucked.
But
And
you
it
know
might
what?
suck. Yeah.
You know what though, Chevy? The very reason we're at this table today was because I was a Canadian defensive tackle, and every year, if they weren't drafting a Tyler Linham in the first round or a Miguel Robide first overall, they were signing ex-NFL Randy Chevry. They tried to replace me every freaking year of my life. And I stood for 10 years. Well, eight years as a main player. Yeah.
You said this to me once on the air, Sheldon. I'll never forget this. You had long since been retired. And you said, Chev, for every year you hang on, you end some young guy's dream. I remember you said that
career.
To me.
Yeah, totally.
I definitely had to deal with a lot of competition because that was 2010. And I wound up playing for the Stamps till 2015. So I fought that type of competition off every year. And then obviously I ended my career with the Riders. But if we get back to free agency, Kelly.
I have a couple of questions for Kelly.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Kelly, here's the way that I'm looking at it. CFL is still, and we're talking about quarterbacks all night long. I think we have to continue to talk about quarterbacks. Trevor Harris, the whole trick to him, you don't even know what you have yet.
No.
As a Rider fan.
No.
He got injured early. And in fact, you left
injury,
you left a head coach and an offensive coordinator. Now you're bringing in Corey Mace, who's a defensive guy. What do you think the conversations are going on between them right now? Because I think they got to make best friends really freaking fast.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Corey Mace is the perfect guy for Saskatchewan because he is just, what kind of personality he has. I think that's going to go a long, long way and buy him a lot of runway, I think. And I think Mueller's going to have some runway just because of the heritage and that sort of thing. But, it's been a couple of crappy seasons where the bottom has fallen out of the season fairly early, and people are getting, there's empty seats and there's sponsorships and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious to see how far people are going to be, just like, okay, we're okay with this. This is a rebuild or whatever. If you look at today, guys, it doesn't look like a rebuild to me. It looks like we want to get this turned around right away. What you don't ever find out until really maybe July or August is how has your American scouting done, and where have you gotten these guys, and did you go to the Cactus Bowl and find a guy, and what is your connection with the Jacksonville Jaguars? Can you get that, practice roster guy that wants some more space and
is built perfectly for this league?
Will he will he come for less and be cool with the CFL and doing it for that? Like, where are you at with that? Because some teams like the Argonauts just seem to find guys constantly. The Stampeders better in previous years than maybe the past year, although they had a lot of injuries. That's really where you make it and break it. The Canadian draft, you're not going to find anybody that's going to probably even make the roster and make an impact for a year or two. It really is what you do with the free agency and stuff. It takes a while for the Canadian guys, right? So
I guess there's been a few years since guys like Chevy and I were drafted in the CFL and we came in and took over right away.
Right away. Right. Yeah. Well, of course, Chev had to go down to the States and play for the Cowboys.
And I had to get cut a couple times and sell hot dogs for a year. But,
exactly. Well, fortunately, when Chev was saying that he had to take that pay cut, the good news is he made that money up in spades by working for Sportsnet 960. So that worked out pretty well. So.
Yeah, Kelly, you paid us. You were more than fair, Kelly.
I think actually, Kelly, that was around the time that you cut us as well. Like we mentioned having you as the wind beneath our wings for when we got our start in radio, but we should also let people know that you actually clipped our wings, and for about 10 years we never recovered. But here we are; it's come full circle. We've asked you to come.
You've hired me. This is the good part.
Yeah, and we're paying you the same as you paid us that first time.
Maybe I had that coming.
Well, and I tell you what, it was last year. And I consider myself. Once you've played, you're not a true fan of any team, but I still have my love. I still bleed green growing up as a guy in Saskatchewan, right?
Pride from North Battleford.
For me, the biggest problem last year was if there's this huge what if in my head, if Trevor Harris had stayed healthy when they were 3-2, 5-2 at one point in the season, like it was so early in the season when he got injured, and everybody turned on the Riders so fast. But had he stayed healthy, what could have happened? And with these new additions. What is the dream season for the Saskatchewan Roughriders right now?
Hosting a playoff game. I think Winnipeg maybe is a team that maybe is going to be come back to earth a little bit. BC, who knows? Stampeders, but I think the Riders, you've got to make, with the changes they've made and the expectations. Okay, and Jeremy O'Day. Okay, you're this. You get to keep your job somehow, so it better be a home playoff date in Regina. I think that is the absolute minimum. You can't just sneak into the playoffs or be one of those goofy crossover things. You got to establish yourself as a really good team and host a playoff spot. Whether you win the semifinal or get to the final, that remains to be seen. But you've got to get enough, wins in the bank to host that semifinal at the very least.
So if you're going based on CFL free agency day one, who's your top 3 in the West and who's your top 3 in the East?
I would say Winnipeg, BC, Saskatchewan, Calgary, and then in the East, I still say Toronto. I think Toronto. I like Hamilton. That's a whole different ball of wax there with Bo Levi and what the hell's going on there. But and I think Montreal's a good team.
And Montreal still gets no respect, Kelly.
They get no love.
They won the Grey Cup.
I know.
We bet against them every
lost it.
week, and they won the whole thing. And you're like begrudgingly throwing them in third.
So we got an interesting question from one of our American listeners here, and I think it's a great question. It's been answered in the comments as I bring it up. But Rubio, American, played UCLA, put 1,700 long snappers into the NCAA. He's a long snapping guru. He says he doesn't know football, but he works in football. He asked a serious question, not to be rude, but a serious question. Can a CFL team beat an NFL team? No,
never.
Never.
Well, at what? Like playing like softball or
in a flag football game?
Street hockey?
Street hockey, yes.
And the reason is this. It's a couple fold. I mean, people will point to the ratio that's needed to keep the Canadian talent in the game. So there's a ratio for those of you that are listening that in the CFL, there has to be about, I believe it's a little bit, it's actually less than 50% of the roster is Canadians. 7 of those Canadians have to start. So it's Canadians that have gone through Canadian University, Canadian Junior, Canadians that might have come out of the NCAA, but they need a Canadian passport. And then the rest can be American.
There is some goofy rules to that.
Yeah.
Too. Like if you have a parent that was born in Canada, you can qualify.
If you were conceived in Niagara Falls on the Canadian side during your parents' honeymoon, then you're Canadian.
If your mom is a big Shania Twain fan, you can.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you've gone to enough live concerts, you know what though, Chev. Here's the way that I look at it. So for me, I'm a defensive tackle in the NFL. When I was in the Big 12, I was a defensive end. My body type is a defensive end. I could not get off like the Watts boys or like the Bosas or any of those guys. I was super quick off the ball as a defensive tackle, but I wasn't a 320 pounder that could dunk. So what I was a tweener. And the same thing, a lot of our best receivers we've ever had, if we get a receiver up here that's 6'4", he's got bad hands or he's slow. What we get is the 5'11" to 6'2" guys that are super quick, amazing hands that catch a pass and can read off of defense and find openings. The cream of the crop will always be in the NFL. Always.
And that goes
but
for
that doesn't mean
Canadians
that
too.
there's not some amazing athletes that don't fit the NFL pedigree, and they can come up here and play. And in the CFL, it really is an amazing league for guys to come up. You can play for 10 years. You can sell tens of thousands of jerseys. You can be a household name in cities.
But let me add this to you, Sheldon, because I think there are some Canadian guys that will never get that look in the NFL that could get a look if the NFL was looking at them. So that also deters some of those guys from showing their talent versus US. Because I'm not saying all Canadians would play in the NFL, but there's a lot of Canadians that could get a shot that don't, just because we're not part of the NFL pipeline. Like there's a kid that's draft eligible this year, a Canadian kid. He played, I believe, 2 years at Wilfrid Laurier. Then he, during COVID, he was able to transfer. He transferred to a JUCO, and now he's coming out of Illinois, the Fighting Illini. Is that the name?
Yeah,
Illini. He's an NFL top offensive lineman prospect. If he would have stayed at Wilfrid Laurier, I don't think he would have ever gotten that look.
He also wouldn't have gotten the development. Like I played NCAA. It's a different animal.
Absolutely. But I think there are some Canadians that could make that jump. But where we also differ, and this is again explaining the Americans that come up to the CFL, and it's no slight against the American talent that's here, but we don't get the next best guys that don't make the NFL. It's not like the NHL where all the guys that don't make the NHL go to the AHL. The CFL pipeline is this convoluted, who do you know, which bowl game, exactly what Kelly said before, like what game did you scout, which kid showed up for $100 workout to get a free t-shirt and run a 40 on a high school grass field and impressed you enough to bring them up to Canada. It's not the next best guys because the salary scale is so different. Some guys who get cut from an NFL team would rather wait 1, 2, or 3 years.
And now they can with the USFL and XFL.
Exactly. Right? So we're kind of a mishmash of players, but the quality of the game is amazing. The quality of the rules compared to the US rules. Like if I'm watching a game, the CFL game, the flow is so much better, so much more exciting. And that's my preference, having played in both. I don't know. Do you guys have anything to add to that before we move on? Because
I think a couple things. I think if you stopped and said, okay, we're going to take 2 guys from each team, I bet you could find 2 guys from each CFL team that could make a roster in the NFL in some sort of way. Like whether they're backup. Yeah. I think you probably could. He just said, you know what? We're just gonna pull rank and we're gonna put this guy in here, and this is what he's gonna do, whether it's on special teams or he's a kick returner or whatever. I think you could find that. I think the rules really lend itself to a different type of player, that, you know, the speed game and how guys look at things, because the NFL's got the 4 downs. I would change a few things in the CFL. I would think about going to 4 downs and changing it a little bit, and I would have not a yard off the ball in the line of scrimmage. I would try a couple of things. I would experiment with a few things, but CFL doesn't want to seem to do that. They get angry when you suggest stuff like that, which is kind of crazy. But I don't know, guys. I think after, like, they had a tough time after COVID, and they had that season get wiped out, and they came back. That season was a tough one to watch, but really the last few have been great. And I think the guys on the field can really play. And I remember McLeod Bethel Thompson was saying that after a playoff game when he's with the Argos, and he said, yeah, the league's got a lot of problems, but the guys on the field can really play. And Chad Johnson, kind of the same thing. He came up there and goes, well, why aren't these guys in the NFL? Yeah. So I think it's there. And I think a lot of the media in Canada, it's kind of the fun thing to do is to kind of crap on the CFL and the style of play and all this kind of stuff, which is kind of like, okay, whatever. Like nobody does that to the National Lacrosse League or the Western Hockey League or whatever. It just seems to be a CFL thing. There's a lot of media guys that like to do that for some reason. But I don't know. I think the style of play and the rules and the change of possession really, really are entertaining. And if you just sat and watched a game in July, had a beer and watched the game, whether it's, you know, Montreal and BC, you're going to be entertained. And I dare you can't really say that if it's, you know, take 2 lesser teams in the NFL and try and watch, you know, Denver and, you know, pick your poison there and try and watch them
watch them run the clock out at the end of the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah. So I honestly, I think it's both. I mean, CFL doesn't have a talent problem; they have a marketing problem, and that's really the sad part about the thing, is that they haven't really figured that out. They don't work with their partners well enough, and they certainly don't work together. And it's been to the detriment of the league. But I'll tell you, the TV numbers are pretty good. That Grey Cup game was fantastic. Like, it was really, really exciting.
Even the lead-up games to it were amazing, right?
Really good stuff. So
good stories.
So I'm looking forward to this year, by the way.
Really good products on field. And in fact, you know, we're really not that many years, as much as it seems like, we've played a career in the CFL and we've witnessed a lot of change over the last 20, 30 years. We're not that far removed from a time when American players, some of the best American players, were choosing between the NFL and CFL because there was parity in salaries. Now we're so far removed. We're so far removed, but the quality of the game, I agree with you. I wish there were a couple more teams. What I really, my problem with the CFL is, you turn on a game, or how about, this is what I admire about the NFL. There's so much content out there that if you have a dud of a game, you could switch right away, and there's another 2, 3, 4 games going on that will provide you that excitement. Like, I watch all my NFL on Sundays. I watch it on the Red Zone, and it just goes from game to game to game. And if there's a game that's really starting to interest me, I'll switch to it. But for the most part, I love that there's so much content out there. CFL, a couple more teams, maybe 3 more teams to get the league rolling. That would be great. But we're not there yet. But I am like you guys. I'm excited for next year, guys.
And I think what Chevy's trying to do is he's trying to leak out right now that even though this was just an experiment here on YouTube tonight, starting next year in the CFL, Chevy and Nasty are going to be broadcasting live after every single CFL game, so you can come out there and have your voices heard. I kind of just made that up, but maybe we should.
Yeah, maybe we should, because people are sticking around. We got people sticking around tonight.
If
we got a lot of people here.
Longer, we'll be there for when the season.
Well, we
starts.
are now. Here's what I actually meant to say there. I'm sorry I went off on that tangent. Kelly, welcome to your first official overtime with Chevy and Nasty. When we're on the network, we always have to shut down right on the hour.
Overtime.
We always go into a little bit of overtime.
If you're still here, you got to comment in with overtime so we know you're
here.
I
think at this point, I want to take a second here just to read back some of the great comments that we've gotten here tonight, because I think we are going to have to start shutting this down sooner than later. There's Chevy.
Well, we still got to get to our trash talk, our talking trash. We're going to get there. So you read your comments. Look at that. Rubio's in. Rubio's got like all caps and exclamation points.
He's just doing that because he knows I got to work tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I got to be
I'm looking at Bruno's Let's Go.
Rob Evans, overtime. Jamin, overtime.
Yeah.
Sheldon, we're doing overtime. Listen.
Okay. All right.
Listen, so this is it. Okay, Kelly, this is what happens. We talked the big game. We did the poem. We didn't run any commercials tonight because we got fat fingers and we don't know technology. But Sheldon managed to get us on the air. Sheldon, I'm giving you the big clap. If you got the clapping soundtrack, do it there because you deserve the clapping soundtrack. We talked about the GOAT versus the BOAT. We're still taking Tom Brady for the alien battle football game, but maybe if we can sneak Mahomes in the back as the backup quarterback, just in case Brady gets hurt, we'll take both of those guys. We talked a bit about CFL, a little heavy on the riders for my liking. I mean, the Stamps made some moves too today. They signed the league's leading interception leader, and Kelly, you said it. You said that in this league, you need guys that can cover. You said it. You need good guys on the defensive backfield. And the Stamps picked up a good one. Plus, they picked up a little competition for Mr. Mayer and Matthew Schultz. But we knew that going in. So this free agent period was kind of a dud. I like that we talked about the CFL game because we got some people that asked some genuine, curious questions. And as we go forward towards the CFL season, hopefully we bring more of you along for the ride. But this, Kelly, this is where we make our money. On the NGBN TV network, when it's past midnight and people don't want to put on a show, people don't want to go to bed. They sleep. What do we call it, Sheldon? The sleep divorce. They're sleeping in one bed and the wife is sleeping in the other bed, and they're on their phone. They're on YouTube. They're on their Roku app. They want to hear what we're talking about in overtime. So we're going to do a little rewind. If I had a sound effect for a rewind, I would do rewind. We're going to go back to the Super Bowl. We're going to go back to the halftime show. We're going to go back to 2001 and Usher coming out with all his 20-year-old hits. What did you guys think about that Super Bowl halftime show? First of all, I want to know, when you saw Usher come out, what was your first impression?
Mine was, I knew it was going to be slick. I thought it was cool that it was kind of over to Las Vegas a little bit.
Is that looping? Sorry, guys.
What's that now?
Did you guys hear a sound on your end? A drum roll?
No.
Nope.
Oh God. Okay, good.
Nope.
It just started going off on mine. Sorry about that. So let's talk about Usher.
So yeah, and I thought Alicia Keys was really cool. I saw her live a few years ago in Toronto, and I think she's very, very talented. And then I realized I'm old enough, or too old, that they will never book a band that I like anymore. So there is
So
that.
what? So let's go right there, right now. Like, because Usher is actually 20 years old since he had his last big hits. Who would you have liked to have seen? Because I got a couple of bands that I would love to see at the Super Bowl.
I think I'd love to see like an Aerosmith or Guns or that kind of thing, but I don't think that would fly in today's NFL. So
see, mine was Metallica. Do you think Metallica could do a live show? Because they sell at stadiums all over the world.
Yeah, they would be big, and everybody knows who they are. And I think that would be down with it. I always thought that what they could do is like an ode to where they're at. Like somebody like Big Law, like Wayne Newton's an idiot, so you don't want to have him on there. He looks like a cadaver. But like if there's, like in Detroit, maybe, not that they have a lot of Super Bowls there, but like something like that really kind of an ode to the city they're in, that would be kind of cool. But I thought Usher was fine. I thought that, that looked pretty complicated with all the set changes and the roller skates and all that.
And he sang. He actually sang, because a lot of them don't. Right?
On and on. It seemed like he was on and off. Like so. My take is this. I agree with you, because I was talking Chad. I was talking with Sheldon about this during the game. And I thought, he was slick, but he was meh. And combined with meh was the fact that there was not one like modern day hit, right? Like there wasn't anything that was like, okay, got people off their chairs.
But my wife loved it though. Like I'm the same as you. I can name you 3 songs that he sang, right?
But when I look at Super Bowl halftime shows, there's 2 things. One, I agree with Kelly on that. They're in Las Vegas. Las Vegas, make it a spectacle. Instead of maybe doing a rock show, do a Cirque du Soleil craziness, people doing some stuff that you've never seen to really celebrate where you're at. And maybe, I don't know, Elvis, I don't know what you do, but something to celebrate. But in the recent history of Super Bowl halftime shows, I thought they did a really bang on job of grabbing an artist that might not have been the greatest artist in the world at that time, because yesterday the greatest artist in the world at that time was there to see her boyfriend win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, you could have called her down from the stage.
They should have. I thought that was my prediction in
Lady
October.
Gaga was there, for God's sakes.
Exactly. But short of that, in the past, they had guys like Bruno Mars. And when they had Bruno Mars, he was either cresting upwards or downwards off the surf, but everyone knew who Bruno Mars was, or Katy Perry. She had some hits. Everyone knew who she was. Lady Gaga, Beyonce. They could have taken someone of that ilk. That might not have been the Metallica, the biggest act in the world.
Yeah.
But, and the one for me that they missed the boat on, I think this year would have been the home run, would have been if they got Miley Cyrus out there. Miley Cyrus, what she did the Grammy, she could have sang her Flowers song. She's got so much range, kind of like Prince, where she could bust out on a Metallica song or a Stone song, and she would sound like she would blow everyone's mind. And I think that would have been my pick for a halftime show. Usher was just, it was vanilla. It was like, man, I'm gonna, I could miss this halftime show and not feel like I'm missing out. That's how I felt. Like him on roller skates and Ludacris in football pads, looking like the Cobras from the Dodgeball movie, didn't do it for me.
Okay, hold on. The guy that came out in the helmet at one point, did Will.i.am come on stage? There was one guy that almost sounded like Will.i.am, but he had like a mask on.
See, you don't even know who was on the stage. That's the worst part of it.
Well, he would have been the biggest star out of them, but I'll tell you what, Kelly, it wasn't the biggest show. My wife loved it because she loved R&B and soul from and hip hop from the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, he played.
That's probably, and that was maybe not by accident, right? Because it's all about demographics and who they're going to go. They're not going to.
Well, you just brought in 350 million Swifties to watch. My wife got to see.
You know what? It's funny you should but the Green Day at the Grey Cup, I think was a better show.
Absolutely.
Like if you're just asking just for my liking of it and how they played and how it sounded, I thought Green Day was absolutely awesome for the CFL to have. And I thought that was an incredible. I don't know how they got that, but it was pretty slick. So.
He had a guy in the 40s still trying to pretend that he was punk, and a guy in his 40s that was still trying to pretend that he was like slick and sexy, right? Like, it gives all dads a chance, right?
Yeah, you just kind of keep going, keep throwing things, right? You
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen. So, yeah. Plus, the music business is crazy right now. So, right. So,
I'm getting some flack for my pick of Miley Cyrus here. Rubio says comparing Miley Cyrus to Prince means it's time to close down the show. Rubio, I understand she's not Prince, but we're not even getting an opportunity to see her. Now, I don't know if you've heard her sing Nothing Else Matters from Metallica, but I know your show, The Rubio Method, is on Spotify. Type in Miley Cyrus, Nothing Else Matters. And you are going to see a masterful, or listen to a masterful performance. I really think that she has a talent that's quite unmatched right now in terms of her vocal range.
Artists are judged by the songs that they wrote, and that was Prince's forte. Like, even Nothing Compares to You, but Sinead O'Connor, he wrote that song, right? But I'm a big Miley fan.
She's talented. I'm proud of you that you knew.
Oh,
that.
Sheldon is a musical
Kelly, I
savant,
think that you knew that as well.
Well, of course I did.
But guys, I tell you what, Randy, I think we're getting to the point in the night here that we are going to start winding this thing down. But Kelly, you know what? The Regina Rocket, the legendary Kelly Kirch from Sports Talk Radio in Calgary. Anybody here in Western Canada that's been listening to the show, watching the show tonight, knows exactly who this guy is. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. And I really think here we're going to be filling some of the void, getting back Chevy and I rekindled with the CFL this year, which is going to be covered on CBS in the States next year, right?
Yeah, no, they've got the CBS network and going to give it some plugs and some love. And I think that you guys talked about the USFL and the XFL merging and stuff. I think it's actually better for the league. I think it's almost a development league for the CFL more so than the NFL. So when that league fails, there'll be some more players coming up.
More guys are going to come south and go north, or go north and come south.
On that point, a bunch of teams folded as those two leagues merged together, and a whole bunch of players are on the street right now, possibly waiting for an NFL shot, but most likely to come up to the CFL. Kelly, we got a couple of comments. People said, great having you on the show. Some people said you got to talk a little louder. Some people say you got to back away from your camera and center it. We only see your eyes, but we'll work on that. So,
I can see myself. Oh, because I go like this, right? And it's like, where the hell is he going?
And don't worry, Kelly, it's your first day on the ride with Chevy and Nasty. And, I remember my first day in radio too. It was a long time ago. And, you're going to get better. You're going to get better. We got better. You're going to get better.
Maybe I'll turn my microphone up.
We'll grow together.
Never.
But thanks for joining us. I think this is fun. And I want to get the Rocket Report more often. It can't just be so riders focused. Come on. You got to be our CFL guy on the street. We want a little bit of.
We're going to see if we'll get a contract negotiation. Going to watch other games.
You'll get the same. You'll get the same contract you gave us.
We'll go to that place in the Northeast that what was that, Crab Shack or whatever?
Monty's Crab Shack. Listen, there's people that still remember that place here. Come on.
Yeah, well, that's become a homeless shelter now. So good for us. We hosted our show from a homeless shelter, but we had some good times, and I think there's more good times to be had. We'll figure out the technology, but we'll get you on once in a while, close to CFL season.
You let me know, guys. I will do it whenever you need.
We love having you on. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Sheldon?
The legendary Kelly Kirch. And Chevy, I think that's all I got for
today. Ask you a question. No, I got to ask you a question. Don't let me go just yet. We're still in overtime. Some people want some overtime. I got to ask you this question. We look, in October, I believe it was the 28th, I made the prediction that the Chiefs would win the Super Bowl. Okay? They won. Here we are. That same very show, you said, I'm not a Swiftie, but I can respect someone who's bigger than the sport and bigger than the athletes. Fast forward about 4 or 5 months now, the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. The love story is almost complete. Are you now a Swiftie?
See, and that's actually a really good question. Am I a Swiftie? No, I'm not a Swiftie, because I think I would dishonor Swifties by calling myself a Swiftie. But do I have a newfound respect for Taylor Swift? Yeah, I do. Oh my God. I've heard so many comments from men, women, kids. I had my nieces over here last weekend, and we're all trading videos and songs as we're having a little party night at our house on Saturday. And my one niece, who's 17 years old, talked about how she got tickets, waited online for 7 hours to see Taylor Swift in Houston. and she said it was like the crowning achievement of her life. And it just kind of hit me that this girl is so big and she's such a role model for so many people. I'm not even going to judge necessarily what her message is or what her songs are. I know when I hear them, they're catchy.
Yeah.
I am not a Taylor Swift hater. I think she brought a lot of excitement and a lot of new eyes to the league this year.
So what do you say to the haters? Because I tell you, like, I'm with you.
Listen,
I'm with
what,
you.
What would I say? I would say,
yeah.
Haters gonna hate. Just shake it off, man. Shake it off. No, you know what I would say to the haters? People get uptight about too many things too often. People get uptight about Patrick Mahomes' wife in Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
Yeah.
Right. There's so many things you could, if you really wanted to be butthurt, you could be butthurt all day long. Now, I'm a common sense, conservative kind of guy, but I don't go out of my lane looking for things to get butthurt about. If I see something I truly don't like, yeah, you're going to hear about it. But Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelce, and you saw them at the game afterwards, and there all the Swifties were hating. Oh, she's touching him. He's all sweaty and hairy. I'm like, yeah, I was that guy on the field. I know what it's like, maybe not after a Super Bowl, but to have my loved ones come to me and because it's not like she's just there cheering him on. They're past that, right?
Dude,
they have those conversations at night.
This girl flew across the world. Like, I know people were making light of, can she make it in time? But she performed like she works. When she's on, she's on. She's working as hard as some of the NFL guys out there because those shows take a lot out of you. Whether it's Taylor Swift, whether it's
she's far more talented and works harder than almost any NFL guy.
This girl flies 17 hours across the ocean to make it there to support her boyfriend. Anybody that's hating on that, got to check yourself. Anyone that's hating on, whether you're a football purist, says that she got 54 seconds of airtime, in the total Super Bowl, which I guess if you're putting a dollar figure to that, that would be about $10 million worth of ad for companies. But she flew across the world to watch her boyfriend, maybe future husband, we don't know, maybe future baby papa, we don't know.
Song inspiration.
Raise the Super Bowl. I don't care who you are. If you got a problem with that, if you say she's ruining football, there's a problem with you. And I have this discussion with my kids because my kids, they're on social media. They get all that, this messaging. Oh, she's ruining the game. I'm like, guys, why? Like you said, why do you make that your issue?
Yeah, but I think again, you're either a 14-year-old or you've got the mindset of a 14-year-old. My kids are the same thing, right? That's what they're into. But football's bigger than that. Anybody that's actually lived it, played it. We're talking about Laura Pippen dating Michael Jordan's son, right? What's his name? And they just announced their breakup this week.
Yeah,
okay, that's something to hate on. That was stupid right from the start. Maybe I shouldn't have hated on it. Maybe they had a chance. I'm just saying they probably did.
You know what? This is
that seemed like something just to make media headlines.
Well, she was talking all about their sex life.
Yeah, that was stupid. That was just stupid.
But the thing is,
you know what?
I was going to say this, Sheldon. And when I read that headline that they just broke up, I actually think it's because Michael Jordan was listening to the Ride with Chevy and Nasty. And he heard us talking about it. And I think he came to his senses and sat his son down and said, listen, Chevy and Nasty are talking about you in Canada. And they really made me think about what's going to happen to my legacy. Son, I need you to think about this because we really broke it down. And what we realized is that at some point, he's not going to be able to bear children with this woman. He's not going to be able to give Papa Michael some grandkids. So I think we really saved the Michael Jordan legacy when we brought this to light. So we'll take credit for that. I mean,
I'm going to give Jamin the credit for this one. He just called the Black Eyed Peas and Shania Twain are the only two acts to perform both in the Super Bowl and the Grey Cup. I think Shania did it in the same year. She might have, but it's probably the best CFL halftime show was the Black Eyed Peas. But here's what's blowing me away is at this point we're still talking about this, and
we still have people.
Oh, I'm still seeing Kelly Kirch. I think Kelly Kirch is still on our broadcast here too.
Is he still there? Well, I don't see
I'm not sure if that's live or not, but
no, I don't think it's live.
But I want to thank everybody from Kelly Kirch because I was about to bring him up. I want to thank Kelly Kirch for coming on with us tonight. The Regina Rocket. The guy's an absolute legend. Guys, you that have stayed up with us, and we've only lost a few in the last half hour of overtime. Guys, I really want to thank you guys for coming on with us tonight. I know you guys are here by choice, and it's late at night. Most of you guys are in the West with us, so I know how late it is. But you know what? I'll tell you, we appreciate this. We do this thing for you guys. We love the interaction. We love the questions and the comments. But you know, Chevy, I just love that we get a chance to do this week in and week out, joining the NGBN.TV network. Tonight we're not on Roku, but we were able to come to you live from YouTube and
from somewhere.
Facebook, from somewhere. Guys, we thank you for joining us. And Chev, I think that's all I've got for this week. And all I'm going to say is good night, and I'll see you all next week. Chev, you got the last words.
You know what? The last word is this. It was a bit of a car wreck. Sometimes you go on the ride and you go off the road. Poor planning, poor preparation. Maybe you didn't bring enough snacks. Maybe you didn't put enough air in the tires. Maybe you didn't put enough fuel. But somehow, with the help of you all out there, Sheldon on the other end, me on this end, we all got here together. We got through a full segment of a show. We got through overtime. We had some fun. I echo what you said, Sheldon. I really appreciate this. And even though we didn't think it was going to go anywhere and my face is still blurry, I can't figure it out. I enjoyed that we did this. We got to talk about what we want to talk about. We took it a few different places, and we'll be back next week. We'll be back a little bit stronger, a little bit better. We're going to have Jenna back in the seat. Nana Mamas. Everyone paying attention and listening out there. We appreciate you. Again, go check out the app. The Roku, the NGBN.TV app. It's on Roku. It's on Amazon. It's on Android, soon to be Apple as well. So if you haven't downloaded, download it. If you haven't told a friend, tell one friend, and then tell more friends about us, because we want to meet your people and we want them here with you tonight. So with that, thanks.
Rubio's calling for double overtime, but not this week, Rubio.
Next week we'll go double overtime. We'll just take it till 2 a.m. That's what we'll do. But for tonight, I'm out. Sheldon.
Good night. Thanks for joining us on the ride. Bow down, down, down.
I was looking for the song, but I don't think I have. I can't pull it up in time. You know what? Don't hit end just yet. I'll pull up the song. When you hear the song, then you'll know we're done. How about that? I'll find it. I had it before. You can't go out with this. It's manage videos. Let me see if I can find our videos. I had it, Sheldon. Oh, here we go. You guys ready? This is the exit. Here we go. Nice and loud. Here we go. And let's see. Now somehow we have to fade to black.